Alright, so somehow I got drafted into this video. Raquel discussed some very interesting points in her first video and earlier in this video, and it inspired me to take a look at Doreen Virtue's chart as well, and I noticed some themes that were present and shared them with Raquel, and she wanted me to share them with you. I want to begin by saying that Doreen Virtue has the 55 too, which means she's prone to slander and gossip, which is something that I'm sensitive to. So I hope I don't go too deep into her beeswax, and hope you'll take my commentary with a grain of salt, because none of this is cut and dry, because none of these individual gates operate in a vacuum. Your chart is like looking at a formula of probabilities and potential tendencies which may or may not express. You know, when you look at your chart, you see this list of gates. Well, we're not a parts list. We're not like this list of ingredients that you can extract so easily from the soup. We're all of this together, and it's in flux. It's fluctuating, churning, and so many different energies that are augmenting other energies. And some of these aura mechanics, these gate energies, are affected by a variety of factors. So it's not appropriate to look at a chart and go, oh, this is what happened, I could see right here. It's all explained because of X, Y, and Z. Those possibilities and those potentials and those probabilities might even be higher in a particular person's chart than in others. And you can see that. You can see tendencies, and it's a probability field of how something's going to express. I can imagine how I'd feel if someone on YouTube were to go over my chart and get a bad read on what is actually going on. Because like I said, it's a matter of probabilities. Just because there may be the likelihood of a particular trait or characteristic suggested by your human design chart, that aspect of you may never even get expressed. You know, for instance, rather than you expressing a particular behavior, it may just simply show up as a voice in your head, which you simply don't entertain instead of something that you would actually act upon. It just might show up that way. That probability of expression is further augmented by other competing, sometimes contradictory directives. And because she's also emotional, like Raquel mentioned, depending upon where she's at in her emotional wave cycle, that could also enhance or inhibit the particular trait's expression. Human design can describe the quality of your mind, the quality of your thinking, can describe the lens through which you're seeing the world. The potential is there, greater to express in certain ways than in others, and you can draw a lot of correlations, but you just can't say this is who you are because you're not living that life, and there's just no guarantee that the cookie is going to crumble that way. So don't take what I'm saying as what is, but rather what maybe happened. I'm simply pointing out some of the compelling themes I saw in her chart that seem to correlate with the events that came to pass. I am not passing judgment. I don't think Raquel passed judgment here either, by the way. It's simply just a fascinating character study of a startling 180-degree turn, and I think Raquel did an amazing job, again, of unveiling how something like this could happen for her, or to her, or with her. The slide I created that I'm about to share with you highlights some of the things I noticed. It's not an exhaustive list, and you may see other things that stand out to you when or if you do your own deeper dive into her chart. So Raquel did a great job of explaining the basics of what may have occurred. And this is simply the next level below the surface of the gate, which is the line number. Even though there may be some shared fundamental aspects among those who have the same gate in common, the line number further differentiates the quality of the gate from others with the same gate. And the differences between the line numbers within a particular gate can be quite stark. And that's what's so fascinating with human design, just getting that peek behind the curtain. I always make this analogy of the greatest American hero, who was this, if you remember that TV show from the early 80s, I think, and it was about a teacher who goes, for whatever reason, I don't remember the exact premise, but he and a special agent are driving in the desert and they confront a UFO, which gives the teacher this super suit where he can be basically the defender of Earth and have all these powers. But what happens is, in the commotion that ensued, they leave the instruction manual for how the supersuit works. So when he puts on the suit, he sort of lucks into superpowers. So he can fly, but he has trouble landing, and sometimes he lands really hard. He can turn invisible, but that glitches out. All his gifts, he can't really control, understand what's going on with the supersuit. So this is basically what's going on with us. With human design, we're able to read the instructions for our supersuit and figure out how we're designed to not only be fulfilled, but how to best align and know when something is correct for us or not. How to get out of our own way, how we're vulnerable to outside influence. It's extremely helpful insider information about yourself. It's literally what it is. You're the most perfect insider information you could ever hope to have in your life is the insider information on you. And this is the gift of what this intel provides, which is 100% self-verifiable. So back to Doreen. If she does not know or recognize these aspects of herself, then she probably doesn't have a good handle on what's going on with that. So here are the themes I saw that may have contributed to her about face. It's not an exhaustive list, and you may see other things that stand out to you when or if you do your own deeper dive into her chart. So I'm seeing some themes that seem to be pretty common running throughout her chart, which is very interesting when you keynote. You'll notice that some of the gate lines fall into two of the themes discussed. Gates that have to do with withdrawing and retreat. Also that when making progress, there's first a regression period. So that sounds interesting, like sort of in order to take 2 steps forward, she takes 1 step backwards first. It's usually take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Well, this is like take 1 step back and then 2 steps forward. Also, there's several themes with encountering the wrong people, and then also having to do with severing relationships that are not correct. Perhaps finding out about these inferior relationships well after the relationship has been established and time has been invested in it. Presumably after 5 marriages, again, no judgment, that sort of phenomenon seems to be showing itself. And then burning bridges. So for that, it's like an extreme, instead of I will no longer talk to this individual, it's like I will no longer talk to that whole community. So it's like a very severe cutting or bridge burning that goes above and beyond what may be required. Anyway, that also seems to play, and I'll go into those gates and the line number descriptions for you. Then there's also dealing with confusion and creative blocks and how that can create some destabilization, not knowing how to deal with that confusion or those creative blocks, like not just being able to necessarily just allow, and at least that's not the tendency. Of course, that can be learned, but when you're wired like that, you're dealing with bouts of this throughout your whole life. Dealing with confusion and creative blocks and the anxiety or the melancholy, really, particularly that comes with that. So let's get into some of these individual gate and line numbers. So we have the 24-1 called the sin of omission, transformation that requires retrogressive periods before renewal can take place, which is in her Venus, which is pretty interesting. Might that pertain to her current more religious rather than spiritual partner being a retrogressive relationship that mal-conditioned her G-center? I don't know. The 35-2 called creative block, lack of inspiration which stops progress, boredom again, and likely the excruciating need for change. As Raquel was talking about earlier, the 35-36 channel is a very interesting one that is super duper driven to new experiences and crises, aka crisis plural. Her life is incredibly experience driven, and it's possible she hit the been there, done that wall, which could have generated a major creative block. And I totally get how it could have been challenging for her, needing to change, but yet having made such a name for herself where she was so well established and maybe so recognizable a figure with countless courses and products. She was virtually typecast, really, which must be crazy making for an undefined G and a 35-36 experience hunter. What was once a blessing probably felt like a curse, where she felt trapped, unable to reinvent herself, too many demands perhaps placed on her to keep producing more of the same. Here she could have experienced the detriment of this line, which says the need to take action, however mundane, to overcome the feeling of emptiness and the fear of stasis. You know, some of these just speak for themselves. The 41-6, the line of contagion, which reads, the fuel for recognition through feelings and the fuel for secret or repressed feelings. The 33-3, named Spirit, the attitude that turns retreat into victory, but also, on the other side of the coin, a lack of responsibility in retreat, the bridge burner. That seems like that could be applicable. Now, that is the lower expression or the detriment of that line, but clearly she's burnt the bridge, right? I mean, could the bridge be burnt any more than she has burned it? I don't think so. 31-6, application. A superficiality in application that borders on hypocrisy and is justifiably treated accordingly. I don't know. Is it possible this was always for her just a creative way for her to make money, and it was just something she was gifted at but never truly felt her own words? You know, the other side of this is actions which match the words and thus guarantee success. And I'd like to think it was the latter, and maybe it was like that until it wasn't. 33-4, dignity, which reads, and there are two directions here with this energy, the underlying faith in resurrection that turns retreat into an opportunity for renewal and regeneration, or, without the guiding light of resurrection, the inevitable dissolution that leads to degeneration. That's pretty heavy. I thought that was interesting. It's her design earth, and your sun and your earth are major. They're big pieces of you there, and that, according to human design, comprise 70% of the neutrinos that imprinted your design. She has gate 28-2, for goodness sake. It's entitled Shaking Hands with the Devil. Gotta love irony. It reads, when the game turns to a struggle, the intuitive acceptance of any alliance in order to win, or, on the other side, the risk in sacrificing principles when there's no guarantee of victory. Kind of a win at all costs kind of vibe. So that too adds a bit of heaviness. Then we have line 40.6, decapitation, the necessary destruction of inferior forces in positions of power before liberation can take place, but also where the idea of who was deserving of punishment was cruelly extended to an entire class. So the big what if that jumped into my brain after reading that was, what if she didn't believe her own words and then got to this weird place in her life where she was burnt out, cranking out the same kind of thing with nothing new on the radar and fiending for a new experience, while at the same time, as Raquel went into earlier regarding her undefined G center, being conditioned by hubby number 5, no judgment, with an identity that was diabolically opposed to her way of life, her lifestyle, her livelihood, and she's basically taking in this identity energy and amplifying it, perhaps becoming the righteous Christian super soldier, which is the amplified sort of distortion of her husband's perhaps conservative religious views, feeling it's very much her, and it's a bigger, more potent distaste for how she was living her life than even her hubby number 5 even had. Now, this is not a knock at Christianity, just a very surprising ideology migration, akin to what felt like as if someone who was a vocal vegan and known for their strong vegan views and even showing others the way of veganism, all of a sudden not only becoming a meat eater, but becoming a hunter. It's weird. And the thing about conditioning is that this is not, usually a verbal thing. This is something that is just energetically transmitted. So he didn't even have to say anything, but his views or his predilections, she absorbs them. So that distorted amplification of hers contributed to this crisis she was having. And for her, the two paths of, maybe her husband's religious leanings and where she currently was in the New Age community were scary different. And she made it biblical rather than recognize that certain aura mechanics particular to her design were influencing her, that were less gothic horror in nature, but still had a powerful impact. With the help of human design, she could have perhaps reached a different conclusion, that she had reached a dead end in the experience department. There was nothing new for her here, no new deck she could release that would float her boat. And not only was she jonesing for something different, perhaps something new that she could mutate, but hubby number 5, again, her business, was giving her the full-on G-center scramble, like polar shift level. And maybe someone got in her way when she expressed her need to wang doodle in a new direction, maybe someone higher up in the Hay House food chain or whatnot, as she was becoming this new conditioned iteration of herself. So in order to escape, she felt she needed to not just sever her relationship with the few people who, got in her way of becoming this new being, but do her part to destroy the entire industry that birthed her. Decapitation style. 40.6. Wow. So she decided just to do her part to blow up the whole enterprise in this dramatic fashion and scare people away. So who knows, maybe so they could follow her in her new direction, which, based again on her earlier mentioned 31.6, she may not even believe herself. And it's just another bit of snake oil she's peddling to a different tribe. That 44.26 channel, another channel she has, can be very high vibe energy. But it's also the channel of the used car salesman in its lowest expression. So the question of what, if anything, does she truly believe is not without merit. But I generally like to give people the benefit of the doubt, particularly when they have that 55.2 and are prone to slander and gossip. I just want to add that Gate 36, her conscious Venus, having to do with values and relations, is named the darkening of the light. So make of that what you will. Now, these things are indeed in her chart, so these are some interesting and compelling angles and possibilities that may have had a bearing on things went down, but this is all just supposition. So again, take this with a grain of salt. It's not the gospel. Hey, if you're into topics of this nature and would like to stay connected for some more intel, please subscribe to our channel. Either way, thanks for listening and good luck with your experiment.